Netflix has been a dominant player in the entertainment business for years. And a lot of us may remember they started with DVDs. Well, they recently shut down their DVD service. And the answer for why they even had it for so long may surprise a lot of you like it did for me. So today, I kind of want to walk through the structure of Netflix as a company, what they've done over the last 25 years, why they shut down their DVD business, and 3 lessons that anybody can apply about strategic thinking. Hello, my name is Kevin. Welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk about Netflix today. If you're new here, I invite you to subscribe, like, leave a comment. Let's talk about the things, but I want to hop right in. So let's start with the timeline of Netflix, the company. 1997, they founded the company. 1998, they announced DVD pay per rental, which matched how Blockbuster did things at the time. A year later, in 1999, they changed from a pay per rental to a subscription model, which is very different from what people were doing at the time. Fast forward 8 years, 2007, Netflix announces streaming. 2011 is when Netflix announced they were going to split their streaming business off of their DVD rental business, and they were going to call the DVD rental business Quickster. Well, there was some public backlash, and they quickly reversed that decision, kept everything under the Netflix banner. 2012, Netflix announced an expansion into Europe, which was new for them. They were only in the US and Canada at the time. 4 years later, they moved their DVD business to DVD.com, which is still live as of right now. And in 2023, they finally announced that they were going to kill off the DVD rental business once and for all, 25 years later. A lot of people have Netflix subscriptions. It's been a big part of the cut the cable movement. Me, personally, I've actually never paid for cable. I've only ever used streaming services, starting with Netflix when I was in college, because they were kind of the only one. It was a little bit of a wild, wild west at the time, and it's been refined over time, and obviously it's a great product now. In 2012, their company absolutely exploded, and with their announcement that DVD rentals are going away, it has to make you wonder, how did we get to that point? And how did it last so dang long? DVDs, is anyone buying those anymore? I learned something that is gonna absolutely blow your mind. DVD sales peaked in guess what year? 2006. That's when DVD sales peaked. People stopped buying DVDs after 2006, and it's been a gradual decline ever since. It might be part of the Great Recession, people not wanting to put their expendable income towards that, the rise of streaming services, etc. There's a lot of reasons for that. It wasn't necessarily Netflix that killed that, especially since they still had a DVD rental service. But it raises the question, why did Netflix keep up DVDs for so long? I mean, it's 2023 after all. Well, you may recall from the company timeline that they announced their streaming platform 1 year after sales peaked. It's not like Netflix had a crystal ball to let them see into the future to know that they should move into streaming and away from DVDs forever, but the timing is very interesting that DVD sales peaked in 2006 and Netflix announced streaming 1 year later in 2007. If you look at the money a little bit, it's very clear that Netflix was promoting streaming all along. That's where they wanted to go. In 2011, when they attempted to kill off their DVDs or kind of separated from the streaming business, that was 2011, they announced Quickster, we're gonna make DVDs a separate business from our streaming service. Up until 2011, they were just combined and reported the exact same way as if it was one business. But the leadership just decided that this is not a business that is managed the same way, needs different needs. The customer base is actually very different too. They rolled their decision back in 1 month after announcing Quickster because people just were really frustrated by the need to manage both things, and it was going to increase subscription prices by 60% if you wanted to keep both. But if you look at the numbers in 2012, the DVD business in Netflix was still making a ton of money. In fact, it actually made more than streaming, even though streaming had been around for 4 or 5 years at this point. Even though streaming had a higher revenue of $476 million that year, it only had a profit of 52 versus DVDs had a profit of 194. I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there was something from Mark Randolph that came out recently that was extremely interesting. And he said that Netflix had its eye on streaming from the very beginning. DVD sales were a way to get there. They weren't actually going to be the primary business model for 25 years. Streaming was the future. The problem was in 1998, there was no infrastructure. People didn't have data plans. The backbone of America that allows us to be a streaming country just wasn't ready. The technology wasn't there. When they announced streaming in 2007, they were actually pioneering a lot of that movement. In fact, because they required so much bandwidth to use their service, Comcast was limiting the amount of bandwidth that they were giving to customers, and Netflix had to pay them extra money just to let people use their service. They were that new. So I want to share 3 lessons on strategy from Netflix, the company. The first, sequencing is important. Netflix had their eye on streaming as the future, but DVDs were the way to get there. That was the wagon. That was the girl they were taking to the dance. And even though they aren't with DVDs anymore, it lasted for 25 years because it ended up being a fairly profitable business and people were still using it. In fact, enough people were still using that it's still profitable up until the moment that they canceled it. The lesson is not to be afraid to buoy your long-term vision with short-term ideas. Big ideas require milestones, patience, and honestly, a little bit of luck. The second lesson is that you don't operate in a bubble. Netflix relied on the outside infrastructure and technological advancements to support where they wanted to go as a company. They could have built a lot of stuff the way that Google kind of does, but they didn't. They weren't necessarily really part of that entire movement. They didn't invent the smartphone. They didn't create bigger screens for people to watch things on. They kind of adapted to what was going on to fit the vision of a future that they wanted to see. Now, the other part of that is that DVD sales, the engine of their company, peaked in 2006. They announced streaming in 2007, and they probably said, oh, you know what, guys, we're gonna kind of have to maybe move away from DVDs as our primary thing because people just aren't buying them. Now, maybe they didn't see that picture clearly, in the midst of the Great Recession. It's hard to see where all that data is and where things are really going, but they had to adapt the times. They can't control every element of their strategy. So it's important when you're trying to go somewhere that you're not totally tunnel vision of where you want to go and that you're actually paying attention enough to what's going on around you to identify risks and opportunities. And the third lesson is to move fast and assume that your mistakes can be rolled forward. Jeff Bezos famously said that, almost every decision is reversible. You don't have to stay committed to all these things that you get yourself involved in. The best example with Netflix is when they announced spinning off their DVD service as Quickster, people freaked out. They didn't want to pay more. It didn't make sense to them. They thought the name was stupid. It didn't have the brand recognition, etc., etc., etc. A lot of valid reasons. Netflix responded by saying, we made a mistake, and Reed Hastings made a public apology. And then within a month, they reversed that decision. That's a major business decision. DVDs were the core of their business, of their profit, of everything that they had going on. Without DVDs, they would have never been able to make streaming happen. And within a month of their announcements, they rolled that back. So if Netflix, a major company, can roll back a major initiative like that, a huge strategic decision, then don't be afraid to kind of take a few shots every once in a while with some things you're doing. It's advice that I'm giving myself on the daily with Tetheros because I just know that I'm not gonna shoot 100%, but if I can shoot 80 and the other 20% I can kind of roll forward, then I shouldn't be afraid to take that shot because you don't make the shots that you don't take in the first place. Anyways, that's all I have. I hope some of that was helpful, useful, or insightful. Leave me a like if it was valuable. Leave me a comment if you have questions. Let me know. Are you still watching DVDs? Do you have a DVD player? If you do, well, good luck. Hope that's going well for you. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.